Welcome, everybody, to The Expendable Show. I'm your host, The Expendable. Today, we're going to do some stuff. I don't know what kind of stuff we're going to do, but we're going to do it. And you know what? You know what drives me insane is when the liberals get on my TikTok and they tell me, it was just skip through the 1 minute of ramblings at the beginning. You know what? Eat it. Eat shit. Because I like rambling. And sometimes I got to start at a point to get to a point. For people who don't know how to properly communicate with people to get a full spectrum of the story, that's okay. I'm trying not to let those negative Nancy's get to me. But I got a bot on there on my TikTok. He's a liberal bot. He constantly is like, Andy Beshear is the greatest governor Kentucky's ever had. He sure is. God, man, he announced he's running for president, I think, pretty much now. That's going to be a disaster. He's not going to make it there. I'm going to keep digging on that dude. He ain't going to make it that far. Anyway, if you like my show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. It's how the channel grows. I've actually done probably the biggest growth of my channel in the last couple weeks. So thank you, all you new subscribers. You should see when my TikTok's insane right now. It's insane. I think I gained probably 7,000 followers in the last 3 or 4 days. It's crazy. Doge. We do statistics on here just to check in, see how things are going with the president, because the numbers don't lie. Doge, 190 billion, which is $1,180.12. They haven't updated the website in I don't know how long, probably because Elon's not there anymore. And then so the debt clock says 554 billion, $4,934 per taxpayer. So we're getting close to that $5,000 mark. Gas in 2024, Joe Biden's gas was $3.30 a gallon. We're at $3.15 a gallon right now. Mortgage rates. So 2024, we were at 6.7% under Joe Biden. Donald Trump has us down to 6.625%, which is not really Donald Trump. It's the other moron, Jerome Powell. He's finally dropping things, but he's doing it at a snail pace. He knows he has to drop them. He's getting a lot of flack for it, but he's doing it at the slowest pace ever. Hello, Jenny Lynn. Trump's approval rating has dropped about 0.8 points this week, and that's definitely because of the Epstein case. So he's at 45.6. The Dow Jones closed on Friday at 44,371.51. So we're sitting good as far as the markets go. The markets are strong. Trump's still a little bit short of the record on the Dow that was set in December, but we're very close. We're very close to seeing that record. So this week, let's start off talking about the issues going on between the Department of Justice and the FBI. So I have my theories on that, but we're going to go through what's transpired and try to make some sense of it. So the FBI director, Dan Bongino, he was considering resigning over the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. They noted that Bongino took a day off from work on Friday due to his frustrations. Do we really know? Because I've never seen anybody post, or I've never seen Bongino say, I've had it with this stuff. I'm going home. We didn't really see that, man. He just took a day off. Maybe he had a dentist appointment or something. We don't know for sure, because he never officially said, I am so mad at Pam Bondi. But anyway, maybe he was. He probably was. I would have been. So they said Bongino's not been seen in the office since Wednesday. So, he took the day off, and then he's been off since last Friday. So he did take a few days off, and it could be because of the investigations that he's in. It takes a toll out of you. That the FBI doesn't work like Congress, where when you're in Congress, you get you work 3 days and then you take a month off. And the FBI actually has to go to work every day to solve crimes, where Congress, they don't do anything. So you just they take days off, lots of days off for that big giant raise that Biden let them get. Idiot. So the latest revelation comes on the heels of a heated argument between Bongino and U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi that occurred on Wednesday at the White House. That is a fact that did happen. Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have been in touch several times during the past few days and are on the same page. So there is a game plan, and I'm going to talk to you when I'm done going over all this. I'm going to lay it out of what I think is happening. So sources close to Bondi say she has no intention of stepping down and is proud of the department and its work. Patel, too, says he is happy with his job and has no intentions of leaving. Earlier on Friday, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche also pushed back on reports of the internal strife. He said, I work closely with Director Patel and Assistant Director Bongino on the joint FBI and DOJ memo regarding the Epstein files. All of us signed off on the contents of the memo and the conclusions stated in the memo, which obviously that's just a soft landing from the arguments that happened after that. The Department of Justice and FBI on Sunday released a joint review that ended theories about an alleged Epstein client list, concluding there was no such list detailing the names of the world's elite who allegedly took part in Epstein's history as a sexual predator. The Department of Justice also concluded the disgraced financier committed suicide in his New York City jail cell in 2019 while awaiting further sex trafficking charges. The latest revelation comes on the heels of President Donald Trump's quip to a White House reporter during a cabinet meeting in which he called Epstein a creep. He actually interrupted it. He said, "Can I interrupt you for a second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?" So then he went on to say, this guy's been talked about for years. We have Texas, we have this, we have all these things, and people are still talking about this guy, this creep. It's unbelievable. In a sense, I can understand that because while this is happening, we've got this major flood event where a lot of people died in Texas. So I do understand President Trump's angle on that. However, I still disagree with the way that they handled it. I feel like if they were going to brush this under the rug, now all you liberals out there that watch this, okay, for one, I didn't hear none of you saying release the Epstein files for like the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't want to hear nothing out of you. However, if you're going to brush something under the rug, I would recommend that you at least come out with a statement that makes more sense than saying case closed, nothing to see here, because that's what's not translating with the American people. They should have sat down and came up with some lame excuse as to why they're going to shut these cases down. So that's the issue that I have. Had they done it a different way, I think you would have a quarter of the pushback. So there's an issue there that I think they could have handled better. Like I said, I'm going to criticize Trump's people. I'm a conservative, but I'm not going to throw myself under the bus when something's wrong. I don't do vote blue no matter who. That don't work for me. So public outrage ensued following the release of a prison surveillance video that the administration used to prove that no one entered Epstein's cells in the hours leading up to his death. The 10-hour video, though, has 1 minute missing, which has fueled conspiracy theories that the administration is participating in a cover-up involving Epstein's death. President Trump is proud of Attorney General Bondi's efforts to execute his Make America Safe Again agenda, restore the integrity of the Department of Justice, and bring justice to victims of crime. The continued fixation on sowing division in President Trump's cabinet is baseless and unfounded. And that came from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, for those of you who don't know. So Bongino and Patel are both denying the resignations now. So, which I don't care. They're talking about this 1 minute missing. Now, I have a problem with that. Now, I'm not blaming the Trump administration on this because they inherited this case. So, as a matter of fact, they're 3 years behind on the case because the Biden administration took the case and they've been basically in charge of this thing the whole time. So this 1 minute, so I have worked a lot of jobs and that require surveillance. I have been involved in a lot of surveillance systems. I have never come across a surveillance system that always misses a minute like they're claiming. Like, oh, our whole system, every camera's got a minute missing. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I'm not an idiot. If we have a camera system in our prison systems that are missing a minute every day, like they're claiming, then we need to upgrade our surveillance systems because that's not acceptable. A minute in prison is 3 deaths. A minute in prison is 3 deaths. So I would rather us not have that. And now they've revealed it to the world. Everybody in prison knows, well, hell, there's a minute missing all the time in this camera. So I got to just figure out which minute it is. So that's a security hazard. And that's why I don't think there's a minute missing. No one's ever talked about this minute before. So I don't buy that. So my theory, I have a theory. So I think it's very telling that Trump has no problem getting on his people. We've seen it in his first term. He held Mike Waltz accountable for the signal leak, which Mike Waltz ended up resigning his position because of it. So, which is already one more person than all 4 years of the Biden administration being held accountable. So, which isn't, I shouldn't compare it because the Biden administration's bar is so low that if like I said, it takes one piece of success to top anything the Biden administration does. However, I think what happened was this case was so big. It had so many people involved, and they had so much proof of those people being involved that it was a global problem. I don't think it was just hey, just go round up these celebrities and throw them in jail kind of thing. I think it was a global situation where you were going to see kings, princes, prime ministers all go down. Now, President Trump always does the right thing sometimes, most of the time. So in this situation, I feel like President Trump came down to, because he's not supposed to get involved in the Department of Justice determinations. But we all know that presidents do. Joe Biden definitely did with Merrick Garland. But I do think when there's a tough decision to be made, I believe Pam Bondi does reach out to Trump and say, what do you think we should do with this? And I think that's what happened with the Epstein list. I think Pam Bondi went to Trump and said, we can nail everybody. And Trump said, look, if we do this, this is going to create global instability. And it's going to create issues in the United States as well, because the left is going to throw the book at Trump as soon as he starts having his people arrest all these celebrities and politicians that are involved in the Diddy stuff. So I think he did it to prevent mass chaos, and it would have happened. It's inevitable. We have mass chaos over the dumbest stuff in this country. So something that big would have caused a lot of mass chaos. And it's unfortunate that it's like that, because I think had I been president, I would have asked Pam Bondi to go ahead and make that happen. I would not have closed the Epstein file. I would have said, go get them, and we'll deal with the chaos, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And I think what's right is to release that information and arrest the people involved. That's the right thing to do. So I don't agree with President Trump. I understand his thought process. if that's what it is. But I don't agree with it. I think he should have went after it full bore. He had the power. He still has the power. Or maybe we're still in 5D chess. And I don't put that. That's why I'm not. I was upset at first. I wanted Pam Bondi on a stake. But now that I sit and I think about it, and I've said, maybe this is what happened. Maybe this is what happened. And then I think, you know what? Every time I think I know what President Trump's thinking, he's 10 steps ahead. So I am just going to sit back and wait. Maybe this is just to tone it down to get all these people to chill. Now they all think they're safe now. And then boom, he goes and nabs them all up. Because just because Pam Bondi comes out and shuts a binder and says case closed, it doesn't mean you can't get indicted. It just means they're not looking into it anymore. But if evidence comes up and it reopens things, they can go get people. And I think he's done it to lower the guard on everybody. And then at some point when he's good and ready, people are going to get nabbed up. At least I hope that's what happens. I'm not really for this protect Epstein and all his cronies thing. I don't like it at all. And so that's kind of my take on the whole Epstein thing. Now I'm going to give you a few other updates of stuff that's going on throughout the week before I get into my last couple big topics that I think are going to be awesome. But, I think everything I do is awesome. So, I mean, my ex-wife says I'm a narcissist. So that's that. So tariffs. I'll give you a quick update on some of the things going on with the tariffs that could affect the market this week. So the European Union is going to extend its suspension of countermeasures to U.S. tariffs until early August as it aims for a negotiated solution on a trade with the United States. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who I do not like, she's a socialist, but that's what she says. So that's going to delay any issues there. So we're going to be able to freely trade with the European Union at a much lower price due to President Trump's tariff policy. At least until August. And they're hoping they can get a trade deal done. They're buying time, which is fine. They should. U.S. President Donald Trump escalates his global trade war on Saturday and threatens to impose a 30% tariff on imports from the European Union from August 1st, separate from sector-specific duties, despite months of intense talks. So that means there's certain markets that President Trump is going to say, okay, we're not going to mess with the tariffs here, because this is bread and butter. This is stuff that the whole world does need. Now, some of the other things like probably food and stuff like that, anything that we send over there and things that come over here, they're going to be tariffed. Which the 30%, he's throwing that out there to make European Union hurry up and get a deal done. And they will. They want to. They know that they're bankrupt if these tariffs end up getting enacted in August. It's 30% is a big number. So also this week, NATO chief Mark Rutte is going to visit Washington, D.C. on Monday, the 14th, and Tuesday, July. I don't know what I said. Just July 14th and July 15th. I feel like I just said March. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my mind. So he's going to meet with President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So I can only imagine what that's going to be about. NATO coming and saying, we give us some weapons so we can fight the big old mean Russia. So the press release did not give an immediate reason for Rutte's visit, but Trump said in a recent interview with NBC News that the U.S. would be willing to supply weapons to Ukraine via NATO, and that he would make a major statement tomorrow on Monday. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't even want them to third party them in there. Russia's not stupid. They're going to know. It's going to escalate things. But maybe that's what Trump wants. He wants Russia to see, hey, I'm going to start giving weapons if you don't sit down at the negotiation table. So I feel like that's what he's doing. He's trying to bully Russia into a peace deal. Hopefully it works. We'll see. We'll probably start seeing some action out of Russia as soon as Trump makes the announcement tomorrow. So updates on Iran. or I'm sorry, Iran. I ran, you ran, we ran. Iran's foreign minister said Saturday that his country would accept a resumption of nuclear talks with the U.S. if there were assurances of no more attacks against it. So this is funny because this whole segment's funny because you get Iran spent all this time talking all this shit and now we're gonna blow up this and blow up that. And now they're going, well, if you guys don't blow up any more of our stuff, we'll sit down and talk. Like, come on, man. You guys are nothing. It took 12 days to get you guys to quit. Get out of here with that. I'll never take that country seriously ever again. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. These foreign names, man, they get me every time. He said in a speech to Tehran-based foreign diplomats that Iran has always been ready and will be ready in the future for talks about its nuclear program. But assurance should be provided that in case of a resumption of talks, the trend will not lead to war. So they've stated it again. Like, hey, we'll sit down at the table. We always wanted to do this. No, you didn't. Now you want to say, oh, we wanted to do this whole time after our bombers went over there and blew up half your stuff. So now you want to sit down and have a conversation. So, okay, I'm okay with that. Sit down and have a conversation. You guys aren't going to make nukes. You're not getting to 90%. You're not getting to 60% enrichment. Sorry, you can go down to 3%. That's all you're getting. So Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, why can't their last names be Smith? Like, why can't it be Mahmoud Smith or Masoud Jones? It'd be so much easier. He said in an interview published Monday that U.S. airstrikes so badly damaged his country's nuclear facilities that Iranian authorities still have not been able to access them to survey the destruction. So there you go, CNN, for all the fake news that you put out during that whole time saying, oh, the Trump didn't even hit nothing. Man, we done blew up all that stuff. Don't worry, Iran's admitted it. So you guys can stop putting out your fake news. I don't understand those people. Like, they think we ain't going to find out. You know how many independent journalists are out there that know what happens with stuff because they don't watch CNN? A lot. So the last half of my show today is going to be something that I'm excited about. So we have a new pope, for those of you who live in a rock or in a cave or in the ocean and can't hear or watch TV. We have a new pope, Pope Leo. So he's like, I forget, he's like Pope Leo the 15th or something like that. I don't ever put down what number of pope they are because there's only like 5 names they use, but they just get a new Roman numeral every time. I think we had like 5 Pope Benedicts in a row at one time. I'd have to go back and look, but there's a bunch of them like right in a row, like 3 Pope Piuses in a row. So let's talk about what Pope Leo's doing. Now, when I looked at the candidates, I didn't have Pope Leo on my radar. He kind of came out of nowhere to me. I did not believe for 1 minute that we would have an American Pope. So once they announced him as Pope, I thought, man, I better figure out who this guy is. Like, what's his stance on stuff? I come from a big Catholic family, so like what happens in the Catholic Church is kind of important. So I went down and I found out, I'm like, man, this guy's a super woke liberal. Oh, this is going to be another Pope Francis all over again. Get ready for the stupid policies. Here we go. We'll probably have our first trans Pope next. But he's surprised me a little bit. Now, he does do some things, and we're going to go over it. So he's reforming the section that involves the bishops. So he wants greater lay involvement. So he's pushing for more transparency and input from lay people in the process of selecting bishops. So he's trying to collect more information on the background of these bishops. before he names them. And I think that's a good idea. Anytime you collect more intelligence on people you're trying to appoint to power positions, especially in the church, is a good thing. So I like that. So he's expecting to implement recommendations from the synod on synodality. Why does everybody do this? It includes revising canon law to allow bishops to share more authority with lay communities. So that's also a good thing. I think the more that the church connects with the community, the better off they're going to be. We need that community outreach to happen. So I'm all for that. So he's also big on unity and collaboration. So he's got a topic that he calls collegial leadership. And so he's called for bishops to work more closely together, addressing burnout and isolation amongst church leaders. I think a lot of the issues that happen in churches, in Catholic churches across the world, is because of this. You have these priests that spend every single day. It's not easy being a priest. I'm going to tell you that. These guys have to save their congregation every single day. And that means being in the confession booths. That means having the church doors open so people can, when people are broken, they can come find a place to get fixed. So this is a big burden for one person to carry. Now, I think this is a good idea. I think the burnout, if you alleviate that burnout, you're going to see more juvenated priests that are going to be able to better serve the church without bringing a bunch of controversy, because you're going to alleviate things. You're going to take that pressure off where they can just sit down and breathe and say, man, thanks God for giving me a vacation day. You know, that I think that's a good thing. I'm all for that. So he's also got another one called Bridge Building Approach. His first address emphasized peace and openness, signaling a desire to unify rather than polarize. I think that's a good idea, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing Pope Leo is out there trying to bring people together. We have this massive divide. Pope Benedict was really bad at it. Or Pope Francis, I'm sorry. Pope Benedict didn't last very long. Pope Francis was really, really bad at unity. He wedged the people of the Catholic Church severely, to the point to where the American Catholic churches were refusing to send money to the Vatican. So that's something that I'm glad that Pope Leo is trying to do, especially the peace in the world. He's been vocal about, hey, let's get some of these wars ended. He's kind of on the same page with Donald Trump on that. So I really like hearing that out of Pope Leo. And I was a super critic of his, like right after they brought him in. And so he's starting to kind of win me over. As long as he stays on that, let's make things better track, I'm not going to have any issues with him. So cultural and symbolic moves. So he is the first American Pope and the first Augustinian Pope to hold that office. Him being announced as Pope, it represents a shift in the Catholic Church. That's how they're looking at it. This is a shift. And so it's going to be interesting to see what that shift is over a period of time, because obviously you're Pope until you're dead, or until you're like Pope Benedict, that he says, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm out. So he's got a method called childhood home, or no, I'm sleeping right now. His childhood home in Chicago and Dalton, Illinois, which is a suburb. It's the city's bought it and they're going to turn it into a historic site. So he has opinions on social and doctrinal stances. So social justice and pro-life advocacy. He continues to champion pro-life values. Love that. We didn't have that with our last Pope. He was more open to abortions and stuff like that. So to have Leo come in and put his foot in the ground and go, I'm pro-life, period, is refreshing. He cares for he does care for the migrants, and I understand that. It's a humanitarian thing. The Pope should be a humanitarian, so I'm okay with him saying that. We're going to deal with it our way here in America, though. However, and he does believe in environmental stewardship, which he doesn't come out and say, "Let's make everything green and do this and do that." We all should be environmental stewards. The planet is our home, and we should take care of it. I'm not going to sit here and be Greta Van Susteren. Greta Van Susteren. She's on Newsmax. Man, I must not be awake. I've been making a lot of mistakes on this episode. I might need to go to bed early or something. Greta Thunberg, the infamous crier, the green crier. If she was a superhero, or if she was a supervillain, she would be the green crier. That would be hers. I can't stand her. I didn't want to say it when she was younger and she got up there and cried. I was like, I thought it, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything because then I'm just going to be bullying a kid. But now she's an adult and I can say it. Like, I can't stand Greta Thunberg. But anyway, that has nothing to do with today. So we all should be environmental stewards. We should take care of our planet. We should make sure we have clean drinking water. We shouldn't be throwing toxins and things like that and waste into drinking water. That's just stupid. That is a stupid thing to do. I do think we should, if you cut a tree down, plant a tree. Things like that. We should not throw trash on the side of the highway, even though I joke about it all the time. I used to tell people back in Ohio, you guys want to stop getting snowed on in the wintertime, go start throwing all your trash along the highway. It'll speed up the greenhouse effect in Ohio. And pretty soon, Ohio will be tropical if you just litter. But I don't really mean that. Don't do that. But according to liberal ideology, it could turn Ohio into a tropical state. Just saying. So he has a balanced tone on the LGBTQ issues. He was previously critical of gender ideology. His tone softened a little bit, emphasizing welcome and pastoral care without doctrinal change. Now, he's played both sides of the fence with that statement. So he's come out and said, I'm going to be sympathetic towards the LGBTQ community. So that way the LGBTQs will go, okay, the Pope's supportive of us. However, then he goes in and says, we're going to emphasizing welcome and pastoral care without doctrinal change. So the principle is still, the law in Canada is still going to be, it's bad. However, he is going to say, I am going to pastor those people still. It is my obligation to pastor the LGBTQ community. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of gay and lesbian Catholics out there. I'm okay with that. So I don't like it when they try to change canon law. I don't like that because we've already gone through in history and have screwed the Bible all up. We've taken things out. We've altered things. So I just would recommend, I'd just rather the Pope not touch anything else in that book because it's starting to turn into something that we don't want it to be. That's my 2 cents on the Bible and the Pope. So he's embracing technology and modernization, which is something that he was going to have to do anyway. I think, who was it? Was it Pope Benedict or Pope Francis? One of the two they called him the tweeting Pope or the social media Pope. He was always on there posting stuff. But he wants to do a digital outreach. He supported the use of streaming services and social media to make worship more accessible. I think that's a great idea. Every church is doing it now. It should be done across the globe. More people that hear the word, the better. Educational reform. He's encouraged in integrating theology with modern curricula to better prepare future generations. Finally, somebody's looking for the younger generations and saying, what can I do to keep these people and bring them to the Lord? Let's get proactive. I like that. So that's my, Pope Leo's doing a great job so far. And I was surprised because I thought we were going to get trash. and he's been great. He's played the kind of the middle center field on things. I'm okay with that. I want him to be a gap bridger. I want him to be a unifier. We need that out of the church. So keep going, Pope Leo. I'm supporting you so far, but if you start turning into a purple-haired weirdo, I can't mess with you no more. I'm going to start saying bad things about the church again. So don't make me do that. Now, something significant happened in the Vatican recently that we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about, because to me, it's significant. So that a lot of people don't even know this, but the Knights Templars returned to the Vatican, and everybody might say, "Whoop-de-doo, what does it all mean?" And so I'm going to tell you what it all means. So the Knights Templars did return. It was a group of them called Templari Agi, which means Templars today. So for those of you who don't know, and you have to be a part of another certain group to understand that I happen to be a part of. So you have to, this is basically the Templar heads of the Templar Crusader army that they have returned. They've returned to show something. These guys have been gone for 700 years. They have not been to Vatican City in 700 years. It's the longest anyone's been banished from anywhere. So why? Why are they back now? Well, we're going to get to that. So this group is the spiritual successor to the medieval Knights Templars. This is what, when they went into hiding, and we'll talk about that, when they went into hiding, this is what came out 700 years later. They've been volunteering at the Vatican during the 2025 Jubilee year, which was just recently. They were dressed in white tunics with the iconic red cross. They assist pilgrims at major basilicas like St. Peter's and St. Paul outside the walls, and St. John's Lateran, helping with directions, logistics, and spiritual guidance. So the whole thing was symbolic, because the Templars were created to give pilgrims safe passage to the Holy Land while they were being attacked by the Persians, the Muslim countries, the Muslim areas. So that's what their initial purpose is. So they've symbolically, Pope Leo did this. Pope Leo allowed the Templars to come back for the first time in 700 years. They did their they got into formation and had this big ceremony to reintegrate themselves back into the Catholic Church. And then they had them all running around helping the pilgrims of Vatican City, the people there. Where do you need to go? Can I help you? That's what they were doing there. The whole thing was symbolic. Now, the Knights Templar is not an official religious order. That is not them. They actually do not identify with any of those religions, any of the major religions, none of them. And they're not devil worshipers. But they've signed an agreement with the Vatican's evangelical organization to support the Jubilee events. So they went into contract with the Vatican and said, "We will come help you with this." And Pope Leo said, "Yeah, that's great. Come on in." And so for the first time in 700 years, this happened. So it's very remarkable that this happened, because no other pope has allowed it. And yeah, it was a big ceremony. It was a big deal. It was the Jubilee, the 2025 Jubilee, which makes it even more ceremonial. And then, as we know, our previous Pope Francis opened up all of the portals. So that's a problem. And I think Pope Leo's trying to correct that. I think you have to do it with the Knights Templar. Nobody is more qualified to deal with these things than the Knights Templars. So for further background, so the Knights Templar were the Crusaders. They were deeply involved in the Crusades. Which is a series of religious wars between Christians and Muslim forces over control of the Holy Land. So here's kind of what they did. So their main opponents were Muslim armies, especially the leaders Saladin during the Crusades. They went to battle with Ayyubid Sultanate, which they defeated the Templars at 2 battles. Then there's Maliks, who eventually drove the Crusaders out of the Holy Land. So they've had some major bloody battles with the Muslims. They've done hundreds of battles, but they did lose some. So occasionally they would get into it with other rival Christian factions or orders. One of their main ones was the Hospitallers, and those were basically like political disputes. So the downfall, there was a huge downfall of the Templars. So King Philip IV of France, so he was in major debt to the Templars, and the Templars were wealthy. They came back from the Holy Land and from the deserts, super wealthy. As a matter of fact, they're the official starters of our banking system that we use today. That's how King Philip got into debt. He borrowed money off the Templars, and he couldn't pay it back. He saw their wealth and independence as a threat to the French crown. So on Friday, October the 13th, he ordered the mass arrest of Templars in France, accusing them of heresy, blasphemy, and other crimes which were likely fabricated. And history does show that they did fabricate them. So when you hear everybody say, the Knights Templars are devil worshippers, that was made up by the French crown. So torture was used to extract confessions. That's what they did to get these things verified, according to them. So they basically tortured the Grand Master Jacques de Molay over an open fire. He was burned alive at the stake in 1314. For those of you who don't understand, when you're tortured, this is why interrogation torture is not effective, because at some point you will say anything to get them to stop torturing you. And that's what happened with Jacques de Molay. When you're being slow cooked, you don't want to be slow cooked after a while, and you're going to start saying whatever it is you need me to say. However, it didn't matter what Jacques de Molay said. They were going to slow cook him anyway, because the king wanted to make a point, like, I'm bigger and badder than the Grand Master of the Knights Templar. So they killed him. So was the church involved? Yes, directly, indirectly, kind of. So Pope Clement V, initially reluctant, he eventually gave in to Philip's pressure. In 1312, he issued a papal bull vox in Excelso, I can't read, officially dissolving the order. So 2 years before they rounded him up, or 2 years before Jacques de Molay was slow cooked, he dissolved the order officially through the church. So although the church didn't directly execute the Templars, it did authorize their arrest and suppression, and it made them complicit in the persecution. So indirectly, the church is responsible for the deaths of the Knights Templar. So later revelations. Let's see what happened later. In 2001, the Chinon parchment was discovered in the Vatican archives, showing that Pope Clement had absolved the Templars of heresy in 1308, but still dissolved the order due to political pressure. So Pope Clement did say that he dissolved their heresy. So he said, it wasn't true, but he still went along with the king's order to have them rounded up and killed. So that's why Friday the 13th is considered the unlucky day. For those of you who don't know, Friday the 13th is significant because it was the day that the Templars were rounded up and killed. Now, they thought they got them all, but they didn't. As we know, some of you may not know, some of you may know, they ended up fleeing and ended up in Scotland, which is where in Freemasonry you get the term the Scottish Rite. And then they ended up going around and around and around, past down into Canada, where they think that the Oak Island treasure is the Freemason treasure, which it's not there. It's somewhere else. They can dig that up all they want. But that's basically that. It's significant. The Templars showing up is significant. Now, why? It's significant because we have a problem in every country. The radicals of Islam have infiltrated every country. And at some point, that's going to be a huge problem. And we've already seen it start to become a huge problem. Now, who better to deal with that problem than the Knights Templar? Now, when you look at the video, you go, wow, it just looks like 100 old dudes. Listen, the Knights Templar have been out in front of us this whole time. Go compare Templar symbols to Pete Hegseth's tattoo that all the liberals were going crazy over, saying it was a white supremacy tattoo. It's not. Go compare that tattoo to symbols amongst the Knights Templar. That it's significant. The Templars have been in front of us this whole time, and we've been sleeping. It's just taken to repair the relationship between the Templars and the Catholic Church. And that's what's happened. The Catholic Church has reached out to the Templars and said it's time to settle this. And it happened. Now, I'm going to throw out another theory. And let's just say this is just a theory. Under Donald Trump's first administration, there was a woman named Betsy DeVos. She was the Secretary of Education under Donald Trump. Now, why is Betsy DeVos involved in all of this? Because she has a brother, and her brother's name is Eric Prince. And Eric Prince is the founder of Blackwater. What is Blackwater? They got into a bunch of trouble because they killed a bunch of Muslims over in Afghanistan. Well, what does that have to do with the Templars? Well, because Eric Prince is a Templar. Eric Prince has been telling us this whole time he's a Templar. And everybody was like, wow, what a whack job. He has created one of the nastiest, most well-funded private military groups in history, right in front of our face for these moments. So it's a theory, though. What do I know? I'm like Alex Jones right now. I just make stuff up and then it never happens. So, but hopefully that entertained you and some fruit for thought. But that's the end of my show today. Everybody be safe out there. Watch out for the crazy lunatics. They're everywhere. I just had a woman just get body slammed at a club by a dude over the weekend. Like, come on, man, who does that? Stop beating up women. And one of my other friends got shot at. Like, it's crazy. Atlanta's nuts. Stay out of Atlanta. If anybody has to come to Atlanta, stay out of Atlanta. It's madness. We have shootings like twice a day now. It's getting crazy. Anyway, be safe. I'm out. Peace.